just, over the good old-fashioned radio as well. If you miss any of the show, we, of course, will have the podcast section going. You can check it out there, Spotify, iTunes, all of those places. Update the latest out of Texas, and the arrest warrants. Have been arrest warrants issued for the Democrats that are, they fled Texas to prevent democracy from playing out. This is a political party that loves to go on and on about democracy, unless it goes their way. This is pretty standard for Democrats. They love to talk about the will of the people. They love to talk about democracy and the importance of government continuing on, and can't have a government shutdown until it's not going their way. And then, let's just stop. Now, this gerrymandering thing, which, by the way, it appears as if Missouri is going to be doing the same thing very soon. The lieutenant governor has made a statement on this. I'll read that to you coming up. There was an interview done on a radio station with an elected Democrat who said that it's pretty much inevitable that Missouri is also going to take these steps. This isn't anything new, but it is being portrayed as if it is new, as usual. This is what occurs in this country. And, every so often there's just this absurd positioning that, politics needs to be taken out of it. I don't know how you take politics out of it. Now, you've got different ways of drawing up the different districts. Do you have individuals appointed by the governor? Do you have judges do it? Do you have elected officials do it? Do you have citizens do it? And the one thing I know is the only people that you're going to get to do it and be able to do it competently are people who are to some degree involved in these things. I mean, it's not an exact analogy, but it would be as if you are trying to craft a board of individuals in order to monitor and reevaluate rules of the NFL, gameplay rules, right? These things occur every so often. Oh, this season they're going to change the way this is done, and this season they're going to change the way that is done, and this is no longer going to be something that you can legally do when it comes to the quarterback and so forth. And it would be as if you call for that group, that board of individuals that makes these decisions to have no interest in football whatsoever and have no connection. We have to pick people that don't know anything about football, and that's just not realistic, is it? And again, it's not an exact analogy, but it isn't realistic to believe that you're going to find individuals that have the understanding and the education, I guess, if you will. I'm not talking formal necessarily, but on district drawings and what it is that the purpose is and so forth, and have these people not have any connection to what goes on in the world of politics. I mean, I suppose you could find one or two people. It's just, it is a silly notion. And it is generally proposed by the people who aren't making the decisions of drawing up the new districts. Listen, don't hate the player, hate the game, one could say. And this is something that is always going to be beneficial to the people who are in charge, to the political party that's in charge. What is occurring is what so often occurs with Democrats is they pretend as if this is something that is brand new. That's what's occurring in Texas. They have to destroy democracy to save it. This is the only choice that they had in order to save democracy, because you see, when districts are redrawn, if it doesn't benefit them like everything else, it's the end of democracy, because they are the key to all things democracy. They are the key to all things good. And so if there is an outcome that results in one or two less seats that are going to go towards them, well, that's just the end of the world as we know it. So they have no choice. They have to make it impossible for government in Texas to continue moving forward. Now, you have Kathy Hochul in New York and you have Gavin Newsom in California that have declared that, well, we'll just fight fire with fire. I mean, if they're going to do it, we're going to do it. Everybody's always doing it. This is nothing new. I remember when I was a teenager and I first started getting involved in politics. I found it interesting. And I was having a conversation. It was a state lawmaker in Missouri. I have no idea, now who it was. And the issue of gerrymandering was being discussed. It was in the news. And he had revealed to me that, of course, it's done. And he said, you'd be amazed. They will literally go neighborhood by neighborhood. Neighborhood by neighborhood. Based off of what information was available in terms of are these people Republicans or Democrats, and carve out specific neighborhoods if it was something that was going to be advantageous. That was back in the 90s. This is nothing new. I mean, fine, we'll have the discussion. Are there better ways to do it? But it just becomes so rote, this presentation that the Democrats put forth as if this is just some new, new way to destroy democracy that no one had ever thought of before until Donald Trump came along. And now, because of Donald Trump, now this is what's happening. Not new. Not new at all. Just like the calls to tax rich people to solve all the problems, and that's my lead into what we're going to talk about here in a couple of moments after news. Elizabeth Warren on CNBC. And it's just, some of these people got to raise taxes on the rich. Now, it doesn't matter that doesn't do anything positive for anyone. It doesn't matter. You can put 100% tax on the rich. They would cease to exist. Guess what? You still have poor people. Guess what? Middle class is still going to be middle class. Does not make a lick of difference other than you have rich people, which are generally the job creators, that leave the city or leave the state. That's just reality. But it doesn't matter. Got to move forward with pretending as if other Americans are the enemy, that these other citizens that have more money than you, we've really got to show them a thing or two. Doesn't matter that it doesn't do a bit of good for anyone. Weather coming up in just a moment. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be sunny with a high near 89. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 69. For your Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 93. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 95.
The Democrats love to come up with these solutions that they know won't in all likelihood be implemented. So then they can blame the people who stop the implementation. And gun control is a perfect example of this. And while they do implement their versions of gun control so often in the cities, and it doesn't work, well, what do they say? Well, that's because there's not gun control over there. So, for example, the shooting in New York that took place most recently, and when you note, gee whiz, gun control laws didn't seem to work there. Well, that's because they didn't have strict enough ones in Las Vegas where he got the gun. Oh, okay. So there's always someone to blame. And they do this because they don't have to fix the problem. They can pretend as if they're doing things to fix the problem, but then when it doesn't fix the problem, they can blame it on the people who don't implement the changes elsewhere, and then they can still raise money off of it. And one of their other solutions is taxing the rich. Nowhere, anywhere in the history of mankind has it been demonstrated that taxing the rich, which we already do in this country, rich pay, most of the taxes. Taxing the rich does not lift a single person out of poverty. Taxing the rich does not feed a single hungry child. Just doesn't work. And there's a number of reasons it doesn't work, and all that can be talked about, but the fact of the matter is it does not work. But because you can always tax them more, even though when it comes to income taxes, the rich pay the most. And areas like New York, when you figure in local taxes and state taxes, they pay by far more of the taxes than everyone. Well, they could always pay more, see? So the reason that even though rich people are paying more taxes, see, the reason that there's still poor people is because we just don't tax them enough. We need to tax them even more than they're being taxed. Here's Elizabeth Warren on CNBC actually being challenged by someone on CNBC who recognizes and is speaking the truth on this issue.
You mentioned Mamdani, and you are in New York, sort of speaking on behalf of him to a certain extent. I wonder, though, often we see this, and this is a local election. New York does not operate in a vacuum. It competes with other cities. And so this idea of somehow raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, who, by the way, I would point out, pay roughly 15% of their income right now between city and state, raising taxes on them will simply drive them away. Shouldn't the focus of a mayor be on delivering services to the constituents of the city and doing that by raising the most revenue as possible without chasing businesses and the high income taxpayers out of the city? Because they can go to Austin, they can go to Dallas, they can go to Atlanta, they can go to Nashville. This is your issue. It's a national issue, not a local issue.
The issue is affordability. Do you know how many working families are chased out of New York City every day because they can't afford housing, they can't afford groceries, they can't afford child care? What Zoran is saying is, I want people to be able to afford to live in New York City. That's what keeps it a vibrant city. That's what makes people want to live
Nobody
here.
disagrees with that, Senator, but raising taxes in order to do it? Why is that the answer?
Oh, dear. Are you worried that billionaires are going to go hungry?
No, I'm worried that they're going to leave and spend their money elsewhere.
You know, they've threatened to do that over and over and over.
And they have. They've left.
But here's the thing.
And Goldman Sachs, when they create new jobs, they do it in Dallas. And Blackstone won't build a new headquarters.
It is just, it's beyond frustrating listening to someone lie about policy that does the most harm to the lower class, followed by the middle class. How she starts out there listing all of the horrible things that the lower class and middle class have to deal with in New York. They can't afford to live here. They can't afford this. Who's been in control of New York City for generation after generation? Whose policies are in place in New York? It's the Democrat Party's policies. If this were a deep red city in a deep red state, she might be making a valid point. This is the insanity of and the dishonesty of the Democrat Party in this country. She is talking about a city that is as Democrat could be. This should be the great utopia, one of many, like San Francisco and Chicago and Baltimore and all these other cities that Democrats have complete and utter control over. And she's listing all of the reasons that New York is a crappy place to live for the average New Yorker. David Faber was the host there on CNBC, and I mean, he did a good job of pointing out the facts, which were contrary to what she was saying. But if he had thrown something else in there, he could have simply said, and who's been in charge of this city all the time? Who's responsible for this? Is it not the party that wins election after election after election after election? It is your party that has its policies in place. And here you are arguing, boy, it's just so typical too, do more of the same, more of what doesn't work. Your tax approach is to tax the rich, and here you have a city in which the rich they're taxed to a higher degree, and you're arguing that the middle and lower class in New York can't even hardly live because of how badly the economic policies are that are in place. They're your policies. It is so difficult to wrap one's mind around the fact, if you're talking about somebody like Elizabeth Warren, is she just this stupid or is she just this bad as a person? Because on one hand, you could write it off as she's just an idiot. She doesn't know any better. She can't comprehend what is so easily comprehensible, and that is the result. I mean, she's arguing against her own party. And is she so stupid she doesn't even realize that? Or is she just such a bad person that she understands that it's her party that has done this to people, but she wants to cling to power? And so she continues, much like a drug pusher, to tell the people who are addicted to the drugs, whose quality of life is diminished, oh, you need just another hit. I got some really good stuff for you this time, because that's what she's doing. Oh, you know these policies that have put you in this particular situation, who have put you in this position. Oh, I got some better stuff. We just need to tax them some more. She's like a drug pusher. And, of course, the reality is, as he noted, these people do leave. I mean, how long have we recognized that people have been fleeing cities like New York? They've been fleeing states like California, specifically San Francisco, Los Angeles, and going to places like Texas and Florida, where rich people aren't punished to the degree that they are in these other states. I mean, it's just this Democrat Party, and Lord knows the Republican Party is not the end-all, be-all, but if it were not for completely ignorant people, the Democrat Party in its current form would cease to exist. They would absolutely cease to exist. And when I say this, I don't mean just the voter, but I think that there are a lot of Democrats that run for office, particularly on a more local level, who are also very ignorant as to the reality of these policies and what they do. And they just don't have the ability or the willingness to look at the landscape and say, all right, well, let's look at the places where we've gotten things the way that we want them, and let's see how it's going there. Because it's fail after fail after fail after fail. And then the areas of the country that they demonize, oh, the horrible Greg Abbott's of Texas. Oh, Ron DeSantis, the worst person. Why is it people leave your state to go to theirs? Do you not care enough about the people you claim you care about in order to try to figure that one out? Tax the rich. Oh, boy, it really makes them feel good, though. And you notice what the vast majority of Democrat Party policies are about It's pitting Americans against other American citizens. It's tapping you on the shoulder and say, you see that guy over there? Man, aren't you upset, sad that you don't have a swimming pool? You know why you don't have a swimming pool in your backyard? Because they don't pay enough in taxes. Oh, wouldn't you love to take the family on a vacation? Well, you know why you can't. It's because of billionaires. You know, if billionaires paid more taxes, see, that's why you can't take a vacation somewhere, is because billionaires aren't taxed. That's what they do. That's how sick they are. Pitting Americans against other Americans. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. 0% financing on select new vehicles. Perhaps a new vehicle isn't what you're looking for, but a pre-owned. And they've got some incredible deals there. Barry was with us on Friday from over at Pinnaker Honda talking about the $1,041 rebate that you can get in terms of incentive. You can be sure and inquire about that. Huge selection of quality pre-owned vehicles available now, over 120 to choose from. 0.99% financing available on select certified vehicles happening now. The certified vehicles go through a 182-point inspection from Honda, warranty, 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain, 2 free oil changes the first year, and that's not some additional cost. Pinnaker Honda takes care of the cost on that, so it's not the sort of thing that maybe you've done this in your financing and then like, oh, now for only this much more a month, and you can make sure that you've got this warranty. That's something Pinnaker Honda takes care of. And don't forget the Pinnaker Advantage. You purchase a vehicle from Pinnaker Honda, you get 20% off routine maintenance, and if you purchase your vehicle from one of the other Pinnaker family stores, Branson or Republic, you still get 10% off routine maintenance at the Honda location. That is the Pinnaker Advantage. Coming up, there is a new fundraising effort that is underway from the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee, and among the breakdown of where they are planning for the dollars to go, it is to pay influencers, content creators. It's a repeat of the last presidential election, in which we would learn, because a lot of these influencers would go on social media and note that the Democrats had solicited them to pay them to come to the DNC. They would pay for their to the Democratic National Convention, and wanting them, and some of them did it, took cash in order to pretend as if they were supporters of Joe Biden and then of Kamala Harris. And this is a lesson that they did not learn, as that is ineffective. And so once again, they're at it. And they plan on enlisting at least 667 content creators. Got a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 89. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 69. For your Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 93. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 95.
Democrats planning to spend tens of millions of dollars to spin narratives on social media as part of a $110.5 million fundraising effort, according to images of slides from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee donor event obtained by Breitbart News. Under the heading Urgent Off-Year Funding Needs, on one slide, it states that the DCC will look to raise $10 million for social media and content creation. $20 million for accountability work, $15 million for voter registration, $5 million for recruitment and primary engagement, and $2 million for research and a rapid response infrastructure. One goal is to enlist at least 667 content creators with the aim of reaching 83 million Americans and drawing 6.6 million engagements, per another slide that focuses on content creation. The program aims to engage at least 167 non-political creators and 8 vetted creators for ads in every target state. There will be what the DCCC calls a social media boot camp that runs for 4 weeks. The boot camp which seems to be for content creators, will focus on customized social media evaluation, platform-specific optimization strategies, real-time insight on trending content and engagement strategies, and daily rapid response content. The pro-Democrat Zinc Collective Super PAC is listed on the slide, implying its involvement with the boot camp. Zinc Collective lists Robbie Mook, campaign manager for Hillary Clinton's failed presidential campaign, as one of the 4 key advisors, along with former senior advisor to Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and that would be Mike Smith. This is more of the same. This is what happens when you are fake. And the information flow continues to flow the wrong way for Democrats. And they run around talking about how, as Democrats, we need to just really be listening to the voters and their concerns, and then they turn around and raise money in order to train social influencers at a boot camp in order to tell the voters what it is, why it is that they should support Democrats, why it is that Sydney Sweeney's a Nazi, why it is that Donald Trump is going to put people in concentration. I mean, it's just the same stuff, and it's this weird disconnect where on one hand, they portray themselves as recognizing that the mistake they made is not listening to the voters, that they should have done a better job of hearing what it is that is important to the voters and what they want, but then they are continuing to take these steps forward where they're going to pay people to instead tell people what they're supposed to think, what they are supposed to want. This was done during the last presidential election, and it was the hiring of social media influencers that were invited to the Democrat National Convention. They were promised certain dollar amounts, which were relatively significant. I don't remember offhand, but I know we talked about the amounts of money they were promising to throw at them, along with hotel stays and anything else to make it financially worth their while. They have to buy people. They have to buy people in order to get them to spread their message. What does that tell you about your message? Do you know why so many Americans walk around out there with MAGA hats on, or with Trump stickers on their vehicles, or will get on social media and talk about the things that they're passionate about that are usually in line with the Trump agenda? It's because that is how people naturally felt. Trump responded to it. There was a interview done with the gal. She is on Shark Tank. Barbara, do you watch Shark Tank?
No.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just don't care for that show too much. But I've seen numerous episodes because my wife likes it. Barbara something, I think is her name. And she was being asked about Donald Trump. I don't know. This is an interview that may have taken place forever and a day ago. And she was talking about how Donald Trump, how he's just absolutely masterful, and how he is able to really listen to people and learn what it is that motivates them and drives them. Now, I think she put it in a more cynical sense, describing it as people's weaknesses. I don't think that it's that as much as just recognizing what is important to the other person. This is how he works out. I know we've talked about this before. This is exactly how he works out all of these deals. He figures out what is important to you and then crafts a deal in which you, if you follow through with the deal, you are going to get some of the things that you naturally want. Not that you're told that you want. Because, see, Trump listens to them. And that's what Trump did to win the election. And in 2016, an election in which there were a couple of themes. One, of course, was the border. And another theme, which wasn't a theme of why he should get elected president, but he often talked about the fake news and the dishonest media. And what the left told themselves was that people began to not trust the news because of Donald Trump, that people began to want illegals deported because of Donald Trump. And what they misunderstood is, no, Donald Trump recognized that there was a massive number of American people that were not being listened to. They felt disenfranchised. Many of them didn't even participate in voting in elections because they felt as if the things that they thought about that were important to them, like border security, that it was ignored. No one cared about that stuff. He recognized that people had a massive distrust in the media because it had evolved from a source of information to a propaganda wing of the Democrat Party. And so he began riding that wave. He began making those some of the tent poles of his campaign. The Democrats' approach is the opposite. It is to tell you what you are supposed to be concerned about. It is to explain to you why, if you don't believe what they believe, it is because you're racist. Just even Obama, when he was out there on the campaign trail in the final weeks of the election, telling black people that they needed to step up and support a woman of color. You know, you've got this finger-wagging behavior from the Democrats in which their approach, and it appears to still be this same approach, isn't to listen to people and then to respond to their wants and needs, but it is to try to shame them into changing who they are. Well, if you don't believe this, you hate the poor. If you don't believe this, you hate the environment. If you don't believe this, then you're a supporter of Hitler. If you don't believe this, you hate children. If you don't believe this, then transgender kids are going to kill themselves. It's just all finger wagging and shaming people and dictating to them, if you want to be a good person, this is what you'll believe. And because of that, they have to go out and pay people to mimic their messaging, because it isn't messaging that is significant or important to the average American. And unfortunately for them, the people who do carry out their messaging on social media already organically are not the face of the average American, and I think they know that. They know that the people who carry their message, average people look at and go, are you kidding me? I'm supposed to listen to this person? So they have to pay people that fit an image that they think will be more acceptable to the average American, and then that somehow is going to translate to you and make you understand that you're just wrong. I can go down example after example. One of the themes that Democrats, after the election carried on was that, well, we did fail at making sure people understood what a good job Joe Biden did. We failed in order to, in communicating to people better. So any sort of responsibility they took upon themselves was simply an explanation of, how it was that you just failed to realize that they're the good guys. This is part of what Democrats just refuse to recognize, and that is Trump's popularity has been because he recognized what average Americans, what blue-collar workers, what you can go down the list, people with kids in the education system, people that cared about crime, people that cared about the economy, how much groceries cost. He listened to that and he said, okay, I will fix those things. You want to get grocery prices under control? I'll work on that. You want to get the border under control? I'll close it and fix it. You want all of these things? I'll do it. The Democrat approach is the complete opposite. We're the good guys, they're the bad guys, and you'd better join us, and otherwise you're a bad guy. And that's why they have to pay people to carry their message. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, I spoke with Josh last week, and one thing that he mentioned was with the hot weather, they're seeing a lot of shingle blistering on roofs, especially around ventilation. Now, blistering is oftentimes not covered under insurance, and it's commonly misidentified as hail damage, which that can lead to a claim being denied, and it can be a ding on your claim history. So that is why it's important to have an expert, and that is why I recommend the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections, commercial and residential services, and discounts on new roof installs for our military and our first responders. And they also work with you through the insurance process without making you sign anything. So, if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
This fundraising effort that the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee is undertaking for, among other reasons, to fund what I would say artificial social influencers and content creators in order to go out and pretend as if they're supporters of their plans and their policies. The reason they're doing this isn't because there is a lack of people on the left already doing it, but it's because to the average person, most of those individuals come across as freaks. And I'm just using very plain language here because that is what the average American, when they listen to some of these people on the left that get on there, and Sydney Sweeney is just a perfect example of it. It's interesting because this is an issue that is vexing the Democrats. And yesterday on the 5, it was Jessica Tarlov was defending Democrats, saying there aren't any elected Democrats that are coming out against her on this. But your people are. See, you have, the Democrat Party has so seeped themselves in this insanity of the left. You can't really separate yourself from it now. You can't. These are your people. These are your people. You are the party that has talked about the benefits of DEI and CRT and white privilege and separating people into these different categories. And so when you have the result, when your people then have been so twisted in their head that a pretty white girl with blonde hair in their minds is pushing Nazi propaganda, that is a product of your ideology. And I believe that there are some in the Democrat Party that are aware enough to realize that is not going to help them. Having those people out there as some sort of expression of what the Democrat Party is today is very harmful to them. And that's why I suspect that so many of these influencers will, quote, look a little bit like you and me. And I'm not talking race, but just the way that they put themselves together. To further demonstrate this point, and some of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with the sort of video that I'm going to explain here. Some of you may not be, but there are countless numbers of individuals out there that are Trump supporters or conservatives, and they are, I guess, YouTube journalists or whatever you want to call it. They don't work for YouTube, but they go out and they cover events, and then they post the videos on social media. And what they'll do is they go to events that are populated with left-wing people that are generally probably between the age of 20 and 30, and they just ask them questions. That's all they do. They're like, what do you not like about Donald Trump? What do you think about Trump support? And they let them just talk. And do you know why they do that? Because they know. They want people to see this is the current Democrat Party. And they'll just ask questions. Now, some of them will engage with them and try and get them to back up their assertions with evidence, but some of them don't. I just saw one yesterday, and it was some gal, and these were lefties, and I don't remember if it was a more specific subject matter than just what do you think about Trump supporters, or do you think Trump supporters are extremists? Some of them are hysterical because you'll have a question asked about, do you think Trump supporters are just weird, and they'll be asking an adult in wearing baby diapers and a clown out. I mean, just a weird freak on the left, and as they sit there and explain why it is that Trump supporters are weird. But the point here is, whenever the opposing political party is the one that wants to put your voters out there for everyone to see, you have a real problem. And while the Democrats I think they do not want this Sydney Sweeney fight because it just puts on full display who they are. Isn't it funny? It was just a year ago. They were trying to claim that Trump supporters were weird. Remember that whole thing? JD,
yes.
just weird. This stuff is so cringy when you look back on it because it was so clearly artificial, and they just all acted like. I mean, these people, they're just kind of weird.
They're just so weird.
Like, you people, you have no idea what weird is, clearly, because you are weird. And do you know how we can tell? Because no one really has to. I'm saying it now, but whenever your people get out there and start, Sydney Sweeney was doing a red carpet event, and left-wing people were there screaming and yelling at her because she's Hitler. You don't have to point out that that's weird for people to know it. That's how you know that you're weird. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. There was a text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line saying it would be unwise to underestimate the Democrats. 18 to 25-year-olds get their news from social media, which Trump recognized during this last election, and Barron, his son, was credited largely with telling him, Dad, you need to utilize a lot. This is what my age people, this is where they get their information. Just because they use the venue to reach young people doesn't mean that the messaging is going to work. And increasingly, we are seeing younger people shift away from the left and more to the common sense stuff. And listen, these things do go in cycles. Humanity goes in cycles. What it is that, you think about when you were young and you sort of just, seems like always this slow evolving movement away from what the previous generation did and the previous generation did. Once upon a time, prior to my being alive, young people in the 60s, and it was, they were on the left, but it was anti-establishment. Well, then you have, 10 years ago, and young people are more authoritarian, and you got to wear a mask. That was most recently. And, but then because of that, you have a lot of them have moved away from it, and they've gotten it more into the common sense realm. And so I think some of it is just the natural evolution of a generation after a generation after a generation. But also, and I've seen it posted, and I think that it's true. I mean, it's making a point, but it says every time, a Democrat, some left winger, says that Sydney Sweeney is a Nazi or promoting Nazism, you get 5 million young men that decide that they're going to become Republicans, and I don't remember if that's the exact number. Obviously, it's somewhat tongue in cheek, but making the point here that they're driving away young people because of the absurdities of their arguments. I also think the Me Too movement really was an awakening for a lot of young guys who realized that in the world of Democrats during that period of time, you could be accused by anyone with no evidence whatsoever of something horrific like rape, and you were guilty of it. And I think that was something that also began a movement away from Democrats of young men in particular. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Government's not the best at making decisions. I think that most of you recognize that. There's some people that they love government making decisions for them. Comes to their health care and their doctors and their insurance and where it is they're going to get their food. They love to be kept, love to be taken care of. But most of you recognize that it generally doesn't work out for you best. And if you don't plan ahead when it comes to the passing of a loved one or yourself, then government's going to be making a lot of decisions about where your stuff goes. And you may think, I don't have a lot of stuff. I got a photo album, got some keepsakes, got some little souvenirs that have family memories, but I don't have some huge estate. Well, it makes it all that much more frustrating and aggravating to think that government could get involved in something like that. But they do. It could take years to sort that stuff out and a lot of money, and take what otherwise is a family that gets along pretty well, start pitting them against one another. And listen, I'm not saying the people who get charged with doing this stuff are bad people. It's just the nature of government. And they don't know you. They don't know the family. Ozarks Elder Law can make sure you're prepared. 10 area locations. Got Springfield. Got Marshfield. Got Lebanon. Just to name a few. You can find them all at ozarkselderlaw.com. Consultation, again, free. And then once it is determined what you need to do in order to make sure that you aren't going to have to worry about government coming in and making things a mess, they'll let you know what the cost is for it, and it's a it's a fee. So you're not talking about hourly billing. ozarkselderlaw.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. I love this headline, and this is a theme that we have heard regarding the firing of the woman who is head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the numbers that are constantly wrong. And this headline is part of the Democrat talking point theme. This from The Guardian. Trump firing of statistics chiefs put U.S. data credibility at risk. Experts warn. Oh, good. Experts are telling us this. Well, let me tell you my perspective on this. I don't need an expert to tell me that these numbers lost credibility a long time ago. They lost credibility because they were always wrong, at least in recent history. Overestimated by almost 1 million jobs during the last year of the Biden administration, over 800,000 jobs. They came out, they're like, oh, well, we were just off by a little bit. What? Yeah. This is the insanity of the government mindset and how upside down, jacked up their thinking is. So here is a person doing a job in which the numbers, and we're not talking revised by a couple thousand, we're talking hundreds of thousands of jobs. And listen, I know Trump believes that, and I think there's definitely reasonable, people can believe it's plausible that the numbers were being rigged in order to help Biden or Kamala and hurt Trump, simply because of the fact that the numbers were overinflated during the Biden years, and then, they get changed and underinflated whenever we're talking about Trump. I mean, it's not just those numbers, it's other numbers as well. But aside from that, to be that wrong that often, but in the minds of, quote, experts, well, they're still credible. What is your definition of credible? Apparently, that is something that's defined by the same people that define expert. Because expert apparently is somebody who doesn't really have to know what they're talking about, and credible is something that evidently means it doesn't have to be consistent, on point, or accurate. And so the guy who says, you know what, we need to replace this person with someone who can actually do the job, we're told that makes that position less credible. Someone holding the person in that position accountable. See how upside down that is? And, again, and the left's whole position, it's authoritarian, he's authoritarian. Oh, shut up already. This is a person that was not good at her job. And then they tried to claim that, well, she's not really even responsible for those numbers at all. And Congressman Burleson yesterday noted, then what is the point of that position anyhow? If she's just the person that is given the envelope that has the number in it, like she's reading off the winner of an Oscar, then we really don't need to be paying that person, do we? Ambassador Huckabee has come out, thank goodness, against these European leaders that are siding with Hamas. And this is something that over the past several days has become a little more, or it's in the spotlight. And you've had a combination of things, the New York Times and other outlets, running that picture of a really sick kid falsely claiming that it was a child starving because of Jews. Then you have actual, real, legitimate video of a hostage that is clearly actually being starved and forced to dig what is believed to be his own grave. And in all of that context, you have some of these European leaders saying that the response needs to be to give the terrorists their own country. Okay, that's one way to do it. There was an interview done the day before yesterday, and I want to share some of what one of the Hamas officials said, because he's explaining in this interview that the reason now that these European leaders are calling for them to have their own state is it's proof that the terrorist attacks on October 7th worked. They fully acknowledge it. They don't even feel the need to hide this. And yet, this is still, I mean, it's almost inconceivable that you can have world leaders that have this response to give them their own country, and they fully acknowledge, if it weren't for us doing that October 7th thing, we wouldn't have been here. This is working. Openly acknowledge it. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 89. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 69. For your Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 93. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 95.
During an appearance on Fox News, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee slammed European leaders for siding with Hamas and set the record straight about who is really starving people in the Gaza Strip. And listen, at this point, I think that we need to recognize that these world leaders, they know the truth. They know the truth. No one who actually is paying attention genuinely believes the reason that there are starving people in the Gaza Strip is because of Israel. No one believes that up until recently, October 7th, Gaza was this thriving metropolis. It was the one great utopia on this planet where everything was so plentiful. Oh, and it was so peaceful. Until Israel overreacted to that little October 7th kerfluffle, and all of the sudden things went south in Gaza. No right-minded individual that has any idea what goes on in that part of the world, everyone knows that that's not true. So why do these world leaders take this position? I think for a number of reasons. I think some tell themselves, if we just give the terrorists their own country, then they'll settle down and they'll be happy and everything will be fine. All of this will stop. Now, that's lunacy. That's the same thing world leaders told themselves about giving, the PLO, giving the people in that part of the world their own government. I remember that discussion occurring. And the argument being that, well, if they had their own governing body, then they could be held accountable. You can't really hold them accountable now. There's no way to really punish them. There's no way. You can't put sanctions on them. You can't have any sort of diplomatic pressure on them because they don't have their own government. So if we give them their own government, that's going to solve these problems. Well, how did that work out? Hamas gets in there. Guess how many elections they had since then? And then they run the place into the ground. They live high on the hog, like most authoritarians do, while the average people suffer. Non-Jewish people that live in Israel, they aren't starving. Why do you think that is? They're flourishing. They're doing things that you can't do in Gaza, like, be gay. I think that you have some world leaders, they tell themselves, just give them what they want, and then, it'll at least for a while make things peaceful. It's a fool's fantasy, but it's lazy, and it's easy to tell oneself that. I think some also genuinely just see the Jewish people as a pain in the backside, and if they would just go away, if they simply just went away, then Hamas wouldn't have to do things like slaughter as many of the Jews as they possibly can. They wouldn't have to carry out an October 7th. I'm not sure exactly why this sudden, more forceful position being taken by some of these European leaders that Hamas should be rewarded by being given their own country. As Huckabee said, for some crazy reason, the Europeans and people around the world are blaming Israel for this. I can't get my arms around what their rationale is, but it doesn't make any sense. And that's true. You can make some sense of it. You've got some anti-Semitism in there. You've got the reasons I just explained. A senior Hamas official said Saturday that the growing number of Western states that say that they will recognize a Palestinian state in September is proof that terrorism works. And he's right in many instances. You have the virtue signaling of some of these people that run around talking about, well, terrorism, there's no place for terrorism in the world. Terrorism is not the way that you get the things that you want. It clearly is in some instances, because and Hamas knows it. This is why they do it. Why do you think they do it? This is the reason also for years the United States had a very known policy of not negotiating with terrorists. Because when you did that, you demonstrated to terrorists that what they're doing works. That if they carry out terrorism, we will come to the table. If they carry out terrorism, we will ask them, well, what do you want in order to stop? And when you do that, they do more of it. That becomes their currency. When they want something, they know how it is to control other people in the world. And what the Biden administration certainly signaled this, and now so many of these European leaders are back to doing it again, telling Hamas, oh, you want your own country? Well, if you stop being bad, we'll give it to you. Ghazi Hamad, who is a member of Hamas's political bureau, said in an August 2nd interview on Al Jazeera Network that international recognition of a Palestinian state is the outcome of the October 7th attacks. He noted that the Palestinian weapons are central to the Palestinian cause, and all Palestinians, not just Hamas, have been raised with that mindset. Surrendering Hamas's weapons, he said, would mean the end of the Palestinian cause, adding, Israel can dream we will surrender our weapons to it. Hamad claimed that Palestinians are not doing anything illegal, they're not terrorists, and not using terrorist methods. He said that the countries now recognizing a Palestinian state had not dared do so before October 7th, but the attack forced the world to open its eyes to the Palestinian cause. He added that another outcome of October 7th is that the, quote, mask has fallen from Israel's face and that the world is now acting against Israel, including rallies in the U.S., Britain, France, and Germany that describe Israel's actions as genocide, and obviously here in the United States talking about left-wing Democrat activists. Hamad stated that the October 7th terrorist attack proved that defeating Israel is not as difficult as previously believed. So here you have a member of Hamas's political bureau openly stating, terrorism gives us what we want. Terrorism causes world leaders and left-wing activists to rally to our cause, to come to our side. And noting that the fact that you have the leader of the UK and other European leaders that are now saying that Hamas should have their own country, their own state of Palestine, is proof that slaughtering as many Jews as possible in the most horrifically demonic way possible is the key to getting what we want. We will be rewarded for it. And sadly, to a certain degree, he is accurate. So much for never forget. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Wanted to read a review for my good friends over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Brad wrote, if there was a notch above top notch, this is where Foreman would set. If you want incredible service with locals who take care of locals, plus your wife is cool and happy, call Foreman. You will not be disappointed. And that's true. I've used Foreman Mechanical a few times throughout the years, and they are quick, efficient, and they don't try to upsell you either. They're just all around awesome. So whether you need an AC tune-up, a service repair, or a new unit install, reach out to Russell and his crew today for all of your HVAC needs. Now you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Trump announced that he is going to substantially raise tariffs on India. Why, you may ask? Why? Because they are buying and selling Russian oil. This announcement yesterday that India will face a substantially higher tariff as it continues to purchase Russian oil, which of course is good for Russia, while the Trump administration threatens secondary tariffs on nations doing business with Moscow as well. Now, this is so weird again, that Putin would have Trump doing this. I mean, he's Putin's puppet after all. We know this. I mean, clearly, Donald Trump is doing whatever it is that Putin wants. So just really trying to figure out the masterful mind of Putin and why he would direct his puppet, Donald Trump, to put tariffs on countries to punish them for helping Russia. It's weird. Indian officials announced over the weekend that the country had no plans to prohibit oil companies from importing Russian oil, despite Trump's threat. India's Russian oil purchase rose from 68,000 barrels per day to more than 1.1 million per day in 2022 as Russia invaded Ukraine. Trump wrote on Truth Social, India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of the oil purchase, selling it on the open market for big profits. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed in the Russian war machine. Because of this, I will be substantially raising the tariff paid by India to the USA. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Just don't get it. Trump is the worst Putin puppet I think that we have ever seen. Just like he's the worst Nazi ever. A guy that had a town named after him in Israel. A guy who's been nominated for multiple Nobel Peace Prizes because of, or nominated by numerous people for Nobel Peace Prizes. All for creating peace in the Middle East and getting countries that once upon a time would be fine seeing Israel wiped off the map, instead allying with them. He's the worst racist. He's the worst Nazi. He's the worst puppet of Putin. For all of the accusations that Trump supporters can't find anything with which they think Trump is a failure at, those are a few of them. There's also been a backing away by Russia. You know, I've noticed that Democrats have been pretty silent on Trump having a couple of our nuclear subs head a little closer to Moscow. Because on one hand, you know, Trump is a dangerous, crazy warmonger. So they could easily use that situation in order to highlight that fact. But the problem is, of course, he loves Putin. We're supposed to believe that too. So that's another weird move for Trump to make. Russia's backing down a bit. Latest on that coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 89. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 69. For your Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 93. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 95.
In an unprecedented move, Russian President Vladimir Putin has stepped into the spat between President Donald Trump and former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev to ensure that everyone knows Russia's not threatening nuclear war over Trump assigning a deadline for Russia to begin talks with Ukraine. Some of this you may not be aware of, it's perhaps flying under the radar, because what has been occurring over the last couple of weeks is a clear sign that Trump is putting the screws to Russia. And that goes against the narrative that Trump is a puppet of Putin, that whatever Putin wants, Trump gets, or whatever, Putin wants, Trump gets for him, and that this is just the world that we live in. But the actions defy that. And so there hasn't been a tremendous amount of coverage on this. But what had occurred is you had Medvedev, who is the deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia, declaring that every time Trump puts some new deadline, as he did a couple last week when he went, I'm going to give him 50 days, and then he's like, you know what, 10 or 12, because Putin's being an a-hole. And so I'm shortening the time because, frankly, there's no reason to give him that much more time. Again, another weird move for such a pro-Putin guy. And Medvedev said that every time Trump does that, that's a threat to us. And, we don't like to be threatened, and we got nuclear weapons. And so that's when Trump ordered a couple of those nuclear subs to start, making their way a little closer to Moscow, to Russia. And that is what has caused Putin to come out and be like, hey, he's not speaking for us. Medvedev, he's just, he talks sometimes. But, hey, these ultimatums, these deadlines that Trump is putting out there, that is in no way, shape, or form seen by Russia as any sort of threat to our national security. So let's just don't be too upset with us here. All of this is in complete and total defiance of the false narrative created by the left that Trump is anything other than much tougher on Russia than any president that we've seen since Reagan. And that's just factual. The Ukrainian government responded to Trump's redeploying those 2 nuclear-powered submarines in the region to deter Russia, saying the move has shut up the Kremlin loudmouths. Top Zelensky ally Andriy Yermak praised Trump's submarine redeployment on Monday morning, stating the concept of peace through strength works. Russia understands only force. So where are you lefties out there? Where are you with your Ukrainian flag? So here is Donald Trump, which you have claimed is just a ally and a tool of Putin, has gotten Putin to back down on the rhetoric coming out of Moscow. Trump is putting sanctions on India for purchasing oil from Russia, and Ukraine is praising Donald Trump for demonstrating that peace through strength works, because that is what Russia understands. That is the language they understand. So where are all of you lefties? Are you going to quietly put away those Ukrainian flags? I suspect not. Or maybe you will. The one thing we do know is that whatever reality exists in which Trump is demonstrating he knows what he's doing, and that he's not some ally to Vladimir Putin, is a reality that most of you will just choose to completely ignore. I don't know that you can really rationalize your way out of it. Try to figure out how this actually is for Putin. This is actually helping him. I don't know that you're going to be able to do that. So it's just best to probably ignore it. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com for all of your home loan needs, refinancing needs. You may be thinking, as so many people, I mean, this is a big discussion. This has been going on for some time that, yeah, we'd like to get into a new house. We need to downsize, or maybe we need to move out of the city. Got to get out of there. But our interest rates are like 3%, and we, going up, man, that's going to really suck. Listen, you can always refinance when interest rates go down, and they are expected to. But part of the waiting means that the price of the house will probably go up for a couple of reasons. Two of the main reasons. Because more people will say, oh, now's the time. Interest rates have gone down. So that means you have more people looking to buy, which supply and demand. The cost goes up. Plus, the seller recognizes you can afford more home now because interest rates are lower, so that allows them to raise the price on their home as well. So if you are waiting simply because you believe once those interest rates come down, somehow you are going to end up better financially off, you could very well be wrong. So I just recommend having conversations with the characters and that team of theirs over there about what you're thinking. And you may decide after a conversation with them, you know what, I still feel more comfortable holding off and waiting. But at least you'll have that conversation under your belt. So you have more information to better make a decision. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. Round one of the Ultimate Captain Springfield contest has begun.
Ooh.
Yes, there are some names on there we know.
Okay.
Some we know, but we don't care about. But some that we do know, actually two are facing off against one another. One of them is Melanie Stennett,
Okay.
who is very well-liked state rep, Republican state rep. And she's up against Jesse Inman.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Jesse Inman, Color 10. He also does news for us sometimes, usually on Monday mornings. And then the other name on here, thought I would share, Dr. M.
Wow.
Yes, Dr. M.
Are you on it this year?
No, I'm not on it this year.
Boo.
I know. It's very sad. It's been a couple years since I've been
Well,
on it. So
You did lose to a cat last
that's
time.
right. I did lose to a cat. I think that cat died.
It did.
Yeah. So I'm still alive.
Stop.
I'm just saying. Just saying. Did the cat win? The cat won the whole thing.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So, yeah, 3 of these names are names that many of the listeners will know. Of course, Dr. M on the school board, and she, particularly when we get sort of into election season stuff, comes on and visits with us about some of the things going on in the Springfield School District. So, that would be, any of those 3 would be fantastic. So I got to figure out for whom I will vote. Can you vote over and over? I forget how it works.
I think you can vote like once a day.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I want to play some audio. I thought it was pretty funny. It's just kind of a silly thing. There's a comedian and YouTube personality by the name of Alex Stein. Don't know him, not familiar with him. I don't think I've ever seen any of his stuff. Maybe I have, just don't recall. And NBC News was down there in Texas. Now, again, this is just so frustrating. Redistricting, quote, gerrymandering, nothing new. But the media is making it seem as if this is something invented by Donald Trump, and Texas is just doing what Donald Trump wants because he invented this thing called gerrymandering. Wasn't even a word till Donald Trump came up with it. Doesn't it sound like a word? It doesn't even seem to make sense. Gerrymandering. What does that mean? It's a Donald Trump word. He made this up. And so they're breathlessly down there live at the Texas Capitol, and they are doing a live report, and you'll hear, and so I can just tell you the visuals. It's your standard, you got your anchor and then split screen talking to the reporter there in the Capitol, and you'll hear this comedian by the name of Alex Stein come up and interrupt the live shot being done by MSNBC.
We just watched the speaker gavel out with a whole lot of anger, Kelly. Here's the state of play. Here's MSNBC sucks. Hey, how are you? MSNBC sucks. MSNBC sucks.
Okay. Sometimes this happens, and we understand that can happen. And while we love free speech, we're going to keep control here. So, Ryan, thank you. Shaq, thank you. A volatile story. We'll be following it. And apparently, not only Shaq cleaned up. Okay. Stay with us here because Ryan has cleared the set, as we would like to say. The gentleman moved on. So, Ryan, let me turn back to you. Nicely handled there. Can you give us an update on, as you were walking us through this, we'll all take a breath there. Maybe not. Okay. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah. Okay. We're just going to pull the plug there. Thank
Kelly,
you,
this is all playing out in real time.
It sure
is high.
Yes.
There's a whole lot of anger here, as you can see. So we're going to get a control of this and come back to you when we can.
Fair enough. And we recognize people are expressing their views, and we're there to cover it. You do that job. We'll move on with our audience. Thanks for your patience with all of that.
All right. Now, the visuals of it are particularly funny because the first time around, the guy, he gets like right up there with the reporter and he's just saying over and over again, MSNBC sucks. So then another guy comes up and pulls him away, and then you could hear she goes back fully to the studio and then says, okay, I think we got it clear. But then the guy shows up like 30 feet behind him again, and he's just, MSNBC sucks. He was saying something about going to the bathroom. I don't know what it was. But the other part that I think is so funny is it gave me the memory of the Let's Go Brandon moment, because at the end, he's like, well, as you can see, there are a lot of people that are really angry about what's going on here. This is not, like, they tried to make it sound as if this guy was there protesting against what was occurring. Like, the tensions are really running high here with this issue going on. And so, as you can see, people are very vocal. This is a guy that was making fun of you. That's all that this was. And like I said, the visuals of it were pretty funny. But it did almost give me that Let's Go Brandon feeling about it, where they tried to pretend as if what was being yelled was actually about something else. The Texas legislators voted 85-6 to pass a motion to issue arrest warrants for the Democrat lawmakers who fled Illinois so that the people's business could not be done. This is the moment that that vote took place.
These and maintaining their necessary until
All right, so that was the announcement, the vote to issue arrest warrants for these Democrats because they want to stop Republicans who control the legislature in Texas from doing the redistricting. Now, I understand why it is Democrats are doing it, because they don't want these districts redrawn in a way that is going to be detrimental to them. Now, let's look at this in context as they act outraged about this. We spent 4 years with Democrats encouraging people from other countries to flood our country. And one of the primary reasons it was done is because those people, while they may not immediately be able to vote, I mean, you have the whole potential voter fraud component to it, but that's not as much of what it's about as it is the fact that those people get counted in the census. And so whenever California, for example, that saw massive numbers of people that were citizens that fled California, they actually ended up coming a bit ahead because of all the illegals coming into California. Well, that means this is, I know some of you understand this, but just forgive me and be patient because not everyone understands how this works. This all goes into play when it comes to the Electoral College. You know, that's how we elect a president. And blue states, the more electoral votes they get, the better it is for them when it comes to making sure somebody like evil Donald Trump doesn't get elected president. Well, how are those electoral college votes? How is that number determined? It is determined by the number of U.S. members of Congress and senators you have. So if you have 9 members of Congress and you have 2 senators, that means that your state has 11 electoral votes. How is it determined how many members of Congress you have? Now, every state has 2 U.S. senators. The determination as to how many members of Congress you have is based off population. Now, once upon a time, we just kept adding members of Congress, but it got to the point where they're like, we got to put a cap on this. Instead of adding new members of Congress every time there is a increase in population significant enough to do so, we're going to start shifting them around. So if you have California and then you have Missouri, and there is a significant enough number of human beings, they don't have to be citizens, human beings that leave California and go to Missouri, that could result in, when it's all divided up proportionately, a loss of a congressional seat for California and an increase of a congressional seat to Missouri, which means, in that particular scenario, California loses an electoral vote while Missouri gains one. Right? It's just kind of a simplistic view. When Trump was president during his first term, he attempted to put a stop to the census counting people who are in this country illegally, because he knew exactly what was being done here. It was the attempt by the Democrats to give themselves more electoral votes so that blue states like California would have a higher percentage or a higher number of electoral votes, and that would increase their power when it comes to choosing the president of the United States. Now, I know, in order to make a point, there was a period of time where Abbott, in particular of Texas, were sending on buses these illegals to areas of New York that were problematic. And so, that created the imagery of Democrats not wanting illegals in their states, but they were importing them into their states. They had been doing that. A lot of these flights, that were occurring under the Biden administration. It's just when Abbott was doing it and DeSantis were doing it, they were making sure to drop them off in areas of the state that were very problematic, that were not prepared for them. But so ultimately the point here is it's 4 years. 4 years we spent of people being invited by the Democrat Party to flood into our country illegally. Also, Democrats could increase their electoral vote count by way of getting additional members of Congress, for their states. These same people are pitching a fit because Republicans are trying to do what, by the way, is legal. There's nothing illegal about this. Arguing that, well, they're just trying to draw it up so they get more members of Congress. So you tell me which of the two ways is a greater violation of the public trust. Which of the two methods of attempting to add congressional seats to your political party is the greater offense? The one that is in which the state legislature draws up the district, something that happens every 10 years or so, anyhow, that is not only legal but the obligation of the state, or asking and inviting tens of millions of illegals into this country, including sex traffickers, including drug cartels, including murderers and rapists, all for the purpose of adding congressional seats for your political party. Which is the greater offense? So as much as they and the media may want to portray these Republicans as playing dirty politics by gerrymandering, the way that they're going about getting some additional seats for the Republican Party pales in comparison to the massive amount of damage done to this country in order for the Democrats to do the same thing. Someone asked a great question, and though I don't know the answer, I can speculate. Why is it Texas can vote on arrest warrants, but they can't vote on redistricting? I would guess it just has to do with because they're dealing with legislation regarding redistricting. They have to have a quorum, a majority of the number of elected officials that exist. As opposed to for an arrest warrant, which may need to be just the majority of those that are in attendance. I imagine it's probably something along those lines, but it's a good question. Can't say for sure. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. Trying to get the TV channel selected there. Oh, wait, the thing's down there. I was pointing at the wrong. I got it under control over here. Don't you worry. I'll stress you out. You won't know stress until I hit you with stress. Hakeem Jeffries said on CNN Wolf Blitzer that Texas Democrats have Trump and Republicans running scared. Oh, is that what this is? Is that what's happening here?
Is that why they're literally in another state?
Yeah. Who ran away? I'm a little confused here. I just don't think these images are good for the Democrats. I mean, clearly the reasons that they're doing it are ridiculous. And again, I cite the fact that we spent 4 years with them flooding this country with illegal immigrants for the purpose of increasing, at least one of the purposes, increasing the number of Democrat seats that they're going to have. And I just think it's very important to note, it isn't because they anticipate, at least immediately, that these illegals are going to be able to vote, but that census is what determines how many sitting members of Congress a state gets, and they are counted in the census. I think I was talking that Trump tried to stop that in 2016, but the courts ruled at some point during the census taking that they had to go ahead and count people as people who are in this country illegally. And so that is very helpful if you're a Democrat state, because that increases the number of members of Congress you have potentially, depending on the other states. And so the whole, at least one of the whole purposes, was to increase the number of seats the Democrats have. Well, now they're pitching a fit because Republicans are using legal means to try and obtain the same outcome. And so they've decided to just up and leave the state. This isn't the first time Democrats have run away from their duties and their obligations. And they're arguing, well, we had to do it because we don't want Republicans. They have the majority, and it's the only way we can stop them from doing what it is that they're trying to do. Well, I'm sorry, but for a party that goes on and on about democracy, isn't that the way democracy works? The people voted in Texas. The majority of people voted for these elected officials. Because you lost doesn't mean that you get to then run away so that it is impossible for those elected officials to do what it is that they were elected to do. This isn't denying, ultimately, Republicans their desire to redistrict. This is denying the people of Texas of having their representation. I love the definition of democracy. Now, you and I know we are in a republic, but Democrats love to run around talking about democracy, democracy, democracy. I love their version of democracy. Well, the people need to have their voices heard. Well, until it doesn't go our way, then we'll run away and make sure people can't have their voices heard. That people have no representation whatsoever. That the people who are elected to represent the different people in the state of Texas no longer are able to even hold a vote because we don't have enough people there for a quorum in order to be able to vote on issues like redistricting. I mean, can you imagine if why don't just Republicans do this in states that they don't have a majority? Just leave. Oh, they're going to raise taxes? Well, just leave. They're going to increase regulations? Republicans, just leave. Deny them a quorum. Any and all legislation that Democrats are going to pass, just leave. I mean, that appears to be the new standard that's at least being set by, remember that they did this last time and some of them got COVID?
Oh,
Did you remember that?
Yes.
These idiots. Have they done this once or twice before? I remember.
I feel like it's been twice.
I think it has been twice before that they have done this, which, of course, runs contrary to the narrative that some of them have tried to create, that this is just such an extreme and unique example that we had no other choice. This isn't unique. You've done this before. This is your go-to. whenever you don't like the outcome of elections in which you don't have the majority. Now, Missouri is apparently going to do some redistricting of our own. This is a statement from the lieutenant governor about the issue of redistricting, Lieutenant Governor of Missouri. Missouri is a solidly conservative state, consistently electing Republicans to every statewide office and sending strong supermajorities to Jefferson City. Despite this, our current congressional map still sends 2 progressive Democrats to push a liberal agenda in Washington, D.C., misrepresenting the will of the Missouri voter. We missed the chance to secure a 7-1 map in 2022, a mistake President Trump rightly calls on us to fix. Missouri's next congressional map must protect Missouri values and ensure our representatives in Congress are as conservative as the voters who send them. There is also a news leader story. Special session to redraw Missouri congressional map is likely, legislative leaders say. Momentum building for a special session of the Missouri legislature to redraw the state's 8 congressional district with the aim of gaining a seat for Republicans. Democrats will fight it, but a united Republican majority with more than 2/3 of the seats in both chambers can force it through if they wish. Missouri Senate Pro Tem Cindy O'Laughlin, speaking Friday on KSSZ 93.9 in Columbia, said it's likely lawmakers will be called in. She was in Jeff City for discussions about a special session, but she had seen no map proposals and was unsure of the timing. Now, of course, Republicans in Missouri, I don't know if they'll be able to get it together to pull this off. We'll see. She first heard that President Donald Trump was urging Republicans to redistrict the state from discussions on social media posts by Republican members of Congress. She said, quote, lots of things run downhill, so I thought, well, this will be ending up in our neighborhood here before long, and it has. Nothing was settled during the discussion, she said in a text Saturday morning. Quote, we all agreed we'd continue working on the idea, no decision made. Governor Mike Kehoe would need to convene a special session. His office did not respond to an email inquiry asking for comment on Friday. In a little more than a week, the idea of redrawing Missouri's congressional district line has gained enough momentum to seem inevitable. House Minority Leader Ashley Ahn, a Kansas City Democrat, said in an interview with The Independent, Republican members are, quote, gun-ho, she said. While Democrats are looking for ways to derail it, the chances of that are slim, she added. If it does get derailed, it'll be by the Republicans. She went on to say, I'm kind of just waiting, I suppose, but I fully expect it to happen. Everyone I've talked to, especially on my side of the aisle, expects to go down and get steamrolled on the issue during a special session. Missouri has 8 seats in the U.S. House, 6 held by Republicans, 2 by Democrats, the same total of partisan division it has had since a seat was lost after the 2010 census. Of the 8 members, only U.S. Representative Ann Wagner, a St. Louis County Republican, has won with less than 60% support in the 2 elections since the maps were redrawn to reflect the 2020 census. And they note that, this is a news leader piece, a major hurdle for any special session on redistricting is that it will have a purely partisan intent to gain an advantage for the Republican Party. Well, so what? I think increasingly Republicans, at least some, are getting very tired of the double standard. Very tired of, Democrats being able to use any and every single tactic they want to, including trying to imprison political opposition and flooding the country with tens of millions of illegals in order to up the number of congressional seats they have. But the minute that Republicans say, you know what, maybe we should do the same thing, except for instead of, having human traffickers deliver people to this country, we'll just use our constitutional authority to redraw the maps. Somehow that's over the line. I think increasingly a lot of Republicans are like, no. We're tired of self-imposing a double standard. And sure, some people may note that this is strictly partisan and the whole purpose is to get additional seats for Republicans. But so what? We're tired of playing the disadvantage willingly. Now, all that being said, if there is a Republican Party that can manage to not get it done, I suspect that will be the Missouri Republican Party. We'll see. Traffic coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 89. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 69. For your Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 93. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 95.
The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line question: when census is done, are tourists counted? Now, they do it based off of home where people live. You may recall the census, that people would come by. They would go and, initially put in your mailbox the census forms. And then if you didn't fill it out and send it back, they would come around to your homes. So that is how they go about it. Now, you may recall one of the ideas that was proposed by the Trump administration was just having the post office deliver those right? That seems sort of like a no-brainer because they're already delivering mail, instead of just paying other people to do what somebody is already doing. And there was, pushback on that. Somehow that is an inconceivable idea. I don't know that it's moved forward to any degree, but point being, ultimately, to the question, that's how it is that they get the count as they go to the homes where people live. One of you also noted that Democrats did this in Wisconsin when Scott Walker was governor at one point. So again, this isn't anything uncommon. This is what Democrats do whenever they don't get their way and democracy isn't working in their favor. They just derail it and say, well, we just won't have it until we're satisfied that you're not going to do something that we don't want you to do. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. I'm kind of gauging a couple more days before my Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor patio is going to be complete, and sort of get that feeling that they're really going to get, maybe by the end of today. It'll be after that some of the detailed stuff. And I of course I've known, because I know Daniel, and I've been interested prior, I mean, just even years before we actually all partnered together, knowing him and knowing the work that he had done for others, that if you want the absolute best work done, I mean, that's the route you go. But as I watch these guys and just the measuring and stuff with the tape measure and just the down to like the millimeter, making that sure things are level. And it was just far what I actually expected. In my head was even something that would be done. It's just remarkable work. And you see that in the work that they've done here locally, whether it's businesses or it is your home, like I'm having done with that patio put in. And if you go to their site, you can see some before and after pictures and see some of the reviews that people have given about the work that they do. And I've been taking photos and videos along the way, and once the job's complete, we'll get those posted so you can see it. I just can't recommend them enough. I mean, the absolute best. Taking some of your outdoor space that you pay money for. I mean, that square yardage that you have is not cheap, yet we so oftentimes don't capitalize off it, and that's what you can have done with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, turning that into an additional outdoor living area, expanding the square footage of your home. HunterHardscapes.com. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Jim Acosta, you may recall, was from CNN, and I forgot he's not even with CNN any longer. Did he? I can't even. Did he get fired or did he quit? Did he get cut? He must have gotten cut.
I think he got cut.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up.
That's how. I mean, the guy got most of his name recognition during the Trump first term because he was just an annoying ass. I mean, he just was so annoying. And it was, you could just tell every time he opened his mouth, it was about him. He was trying to identify him as like, oh, I really showed Trump. And it just served no one other than, I suppose, his own narcissism. And so he's not at CNN any longer, but I guess he still does, quote, journalism.
He left after they were going to force his show in that
right.
that midnight time slot.
They were gonna move him.
Yep, I forgot about that.
Midnight. So it's like, should we fire him? You know what? Why don't we just move him to midnight? I think it'll all take care of itself. And so, all right, he's got his own little media channel, I guess. He still does reporting. This is such a weird story. One, because I think it just is a display of the demented nature of somebody like Jim Acosta, but it's just weird at the same time. He did a story about I guess it's the anniversary of the school shooting at Parkland. So it was 2018. So what is that? However many years ago that is. And he evidently, he claims that the parents did this. They created an AI version of their dead son. He interviewed, for a news segment, the AI version of a kid who was killed in the Parkland shooting. And just to give you a sense, I'm sure you can imagine how it went, given that it's Jim Acosta. This is just a very short clip from the interview he did.
Joaquin, I would like to know what your solution would be for gun violence.
Great question. I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement. We need to create safe spaces for conversations and connections, making sure everyone feels seen and heard. It's about building a culture of kindness and understanding. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea, Joaquin.
Is that not the
That is
weirdest,
so
most
weird.
twisted,
I don't like that.
demented thing? And there was visual to it as well. It was this AI rendition of, I suppose, with age advancement, what this, now he would be an adult, would look like today. Like, what is the point of that? Is the audience supposed to believe that is what I don't even know what to make of it. It is just so bizarre. again, this coming from the political wing in our country that claims that Trump supporters are weird and JD Vance is weird. This idea to take an AI character that he said the parents created. Now, I don't know why the parents created this. If he said, hey, I'd love to do an interview with an AI version of your son, or if they just created one, which, listen, I wouldn't even begin to judge a parent that did something like that. I can't even comprehend what it is like to lose a child, particularly so unexpected like that. So, if you have parents and they want to create an AI of their child who was taken away from them in such a manner for whatever reasons, hey, not going to judge that. But how it is that Jim Acosta ends up, quote, interviewing this, which with such an obvious answer from somebody that is a left winger. It's like the basic, the most rendered down bullet point argument that the left makes when it comes to this stuff. Oh, tougher gun control, more of this, more of that. And just, I don't know, it's icky, it's weird, it's odd. Jim Acosta, what a weird freak this guy is. And there really is something wrong with him. This is a guy that CNN thought, this is a person that we want delivering the news to people. Until they moved him to midnight. There's a very interesting story that a number of local outlets have picked up. It's a CNN story. KY3 has it on their website. I don't know if any of the other local affiliate or any of the other local stations do, but I noticed when I Googled the headline, the search was populated with local TV affiliates across the country. And it's about a wife of a man deported almost 10 years ago, followed her husband to Mexico. Now, I don't know if the people at CNN who put this story together really thought out exactly what they were doing, but I suspect maybe they did not. So I want to talk about that story coming up here in just moments. I'm Nick Reed. All right, we've got a traffic update, also a reminder. Now, it is just Tuesday, but that being said, we will on Friday have our Friday Road Show at Scramblers. That is 6A to 9A if you want to come out and have some breakfast as we broadcast live from Scramblers this Friday, 6A to 9A. Traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 89. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 69. For your Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 93. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 95.
CNN has a story that has been picked up. I found this specific one on, or found it specifically on KY3's website, but I Googled the headline and it was on local news sites all over the place. And the headline is, "Wife of man deported almost 10 years ago followed her husband to Mexico." Now, let's read this story. An American woman and her family have been living in Mexico for 9 years, ever since her husband was deported there almost a decade ago. Candice Marie Garcia Sanchez said the move was a no-brainer. Quote, "Neither of us feel like knew what to expect," end quote. Or neither of us, I feel, knew what to expect. Sanchez, who's originally from Utah, said she and her husband are living a life together that she never thought she would. Quote, "My husband was picked up by immigration," she said. "He did have a record in the United States, and he was set for deportation. We tried to fight it for a little over a year, and towards the end of it, we decided that we were going to move with him instead." Sanchez said breaking the family up after her Mexican husband was deported was not an option, so she decided to leave everything behind and move with her firstborn to her husband's native country. She said life there is slower and traffic jams do not necessarily involve motor vehicles. Fast forward to now, quote, "I feel like we're just living our happy lives and raising our children in a beautiful place, and we get to just focus on our family. That's, what we always wanted." Sanchez made the decision that turned a traumatic deportation into a learning lesson she now shares with others over social media. "Overall, it's been an extremely positive experience for us," she said. "We've met so many incredible families and unfortunately are in the same kind of situation or similar situations as us." Her social media post ranges from daily life in rural Mexico, where her 2 other children were born, to the hot topic of immigration. Quote, "There's no getting around it. Deportation is political," she said. Although Sanchez does not live in the United States anymore, she said she continues to exercise her right to vote from abroad. In a recent TikTok, she said she voted against Donald Trump, but also made it clear she thinks immigration is an issue both parties have mishandled. "I do believe that both sides have made promises that they haven't kept. Even though I've lived in Mexico for 8 years, I do vote in every election." Sanchez said that she has been successful beyond her dreams. She now has more than 1.5 million followers on TikTok, and the number is growing. Meanwhile, her husband, who worked construction in the U.S. for 18 years, has been focusing on building the home of their dreams. They hope to soon move into a farmhouse overlooking the fields his family has owned for generations. "She left a comfortable life in the United States to join me in Mexico," Fidel Garcia Sanchez said. "Everything I do for her and our children." The family's now looking forward to one of the most American holidays, Thanksgiving. They said they hope they will never, or that they will be able to move into their new home by then. And so this, again, is a CNN story. Well, this seems to me like it worked out really well. Now, I know one of the questions that you might immediately ask is like, okay, now wait a minute. They aren't specifically saying under what president she was deported. And they're a little vague when it comes to the timeline. I've seen some note 9 years, or just over 9 years, almost 10 years ago he was deported. I did see one story that suggested he was deported under Trump. However, she noted that he had a record in the United States for deportation, and they had been fighting it for over a year. And by the timeline, best I can tell, that means he was ordered to be deported before Trump was elected president, and that if he was deported under Trump, it would have been the early part of his administration, just based off the very vague timeline they're giving. I suspect the timeline is vague because they can't really pin this on Trump. But ultimately, what I see here is a story in which, number one, it's a demonstration that no family has to be separated. For all of the rhetoric we hear about Donald Trump separating families, that is a choice. This is a choice. If you have a family, listen, she's not even Hispanic. She was born in Utah. She's a white gal. She has an Hispanic name because she married somebody from Mexico, but this is somebody whose home was Utah. You know what this story demonstrates is that the picture that has been painted by some people that there are these unavoidable circumstances in which the people who are in this country illegally or are family to people who are in this country illegally, that they have absolutely no choice in their future, that these are people who have had every option ripped from them and they are in no control of their future whatsoever. But what this story demonstrates is, yes, you are in control of your future. If you are living with someone, you're friends with someone, you have a child with someone who is in this country illegally, and then they get deported because they're in this country illegally, the only reason the family gets, quote, separated is if part of the family decides to stay here. Every one of and this is the thing that, it's an area in which the left has been, I think, rather successful. And that is making people think that everyone who is in this country illegally had absolutely no other choice. This is the only way they could come here. And that if they're deported and they're ripped from their family, there's no way that they can continue to be with their family. None of that is true. Every individual that is currently facing deportation, it's because of the choices they're made, and in some instances, for some people, it's the choices their parents made. And while some may say that's not fair, children all the time end up suffering because of poor choices that their parents make that are in violation of the law. They don't get a free pass because of it. And this idea that this is, the other thing, there is this picture that is painted that every single person who came here illegally did it because they had that was the only option for them. Every other option was a hellhole, that there was nowhere else in the world for these people to go, that every one of these people were doing everything they could just to survive. That also is not true. Here's an example of someone who was in this country illegally and apparently, committed some other sort of crime, was deported, and his wife said, you know what, I'll come to Mexico with you. Lo and behold, what a crazy notion. And I know that not every situation is going to turn out this way, but it certainly demonstrates that not every situation is this horrific, outcome that is beyond any sort of control of the person who is being deported. I don't, because it's CNN, there's this instinct to recognize a story about illegals or deportation as something that is supposed to really make Donald Trump look bad. And I don't know what the motivation of this story is, but all I know is that this, to me, is really kind of the sort of story that I think the Trump administration could point to and go, look, you people all believe that being deported is like sending someone straight to hell, in which they have no options in life, no control in life, but that isn't necessarily the case, particularly given the fact that most of these people are just being sent back to their home countries, their homes. And they're being given the opportunity to get $1,000, get a nice flight home. They can get home where they want to, have $1,000 US, which isn't, the most money in the world, but it certainly is going to help. I mean, this is a sort of story that's going to come and go, and I don't know that I would necessarily, if I'm the Trump administration, point to it as some sort of, outcome that we should focus on and expect when it comes to deportations. But I just thought it was an important story because it seemed to defy everything we're told about the horrors of Donald Trump's deportation, and showed ultimately that the only families that get separated are the ones who choose to be. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Some Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line messages. One asking, how does she go in American politics from Mexico? If I'm understanding the question correctly, it's probably in reference to the fact that in the story, the woman whose husband was deported back to Mexico, and she decided to go with him, has been living down there now 10 years and has all these TikTok followers, happier than she's ever been. Noted that she has voted in every presidential election. When you can vote from abroad, I mean, she's still an American citizen. She hasn't given up that citizenship, and that's why it is that she's still able to vote from abroad, if that's what that question meant to ask. Post office delivers all census initially. Then, when the form isn't returned, that's when the census workers go to the address. We were talking about the way the census is counted earlier, and I noted that was an area in which they noted the Trump administration in the very beginning days that there could be some efficiency, and that is to have the post office take over that aspect of it, because they already go door to door for everyone, and this person's noting that when it's first sent out, it is done by the postal office, but if you don't return it, then the follow up is done by the census workers. And regarding redistricting, someone saying, I was on the phone with Cindy O'Loughlin during the last redistricting, and she did not want to redraw the map aggressively in favor of Republicans. And this would not surprise me. I can't talk specifically to her. But listen, Missouri's Republican Party is milquetoast. It's lukewarm. It is uninspiring. It's bland. It is just blah. And that doesn't mean that at times they don't do things that aren't beneficial. In fact, with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, on Friday we talked about the implications of eliminating capital gains taxes in Missouri, and Missouri being the first state to do it. Now, unfortunately, it gets offset by things like 5 separate tax increases at the pump, and a demonstration that when they want to give tax incentives to, stadiums, they can get that done in a matter of a couple days. Yet when it comes to meaningful tax cuts like the elimination of the state income tax for average Missourians, that somehow takes year after year after year after year to get done, if ever. And while Texas is obviously going to great lengths in order to redraw the districts in its state, and there's talk about it happening in Missouri, because Missouri because Republicans have a super majority, they don't have to, worry so much about partisan stoppage of it occurring. But, you know, the Republican Party is not taking advantage of having a supermajority. You know, you will hear even some Republicans in Missouri that will tout the economic successes in Florida and Tennessee and, you know, these states that don't have income tax. It's like Republicans have a supermajority here. Why is this a difficult thing to do? Why is school choice something that in a meaningful way seems to never get done? A number of these different issues that the Republican Party claims to champion, particularly when they're running in primaries, yet they have a supermajority. There's absolutely no excuse whatsoever for not getting these things done. None. Missouri should be seen by the rest of the country like a Florida or a Texas as an example of all of the massive benefits that can be reaped when bold steps are taken forward for the citizens. We just don't have that. There are some Missouri lawmakers that would love for the Republican Party to take us in that direction. They just get blocked by the Republican Party. And it's really a shame, and frankly ticks me off a little bit, that here they're in complete and total control and we're lackluster. When you hear on a show like this, at a nationally syndicated one, or you're watching news and there's always reference of people fleeing California and they're fleeing New York, and then they list the states that they go to and they say, oh, well, you know, and they're going to Florida and they're going to Texas, they're going to sometimes Tennessee. You just don't hear Missouri thrown in there. And we do have people that are political refugees from California. Seems like California and then Colorado follows up a close second in terms of political refugees who have come here in order to get away from the damaging policies of the Democrats in the states of California and Colorado. But, you know, nationally, if you were to just ask people who pay attention to what's going on and who recognize that voters and citizens leave Democrat states to go to states that have a much higher quality of life, and you were to ask them, well, what states do you recognize as a state? If you lived in California and you were moving, where is it that you hear everyone goes? Missouri's not on that list. We should be embarrassed by that. We should be a little ashamed that the complete waste of opportunity that the Republican Party has, this opportunity to just do all of the bold things that would be a reflection of what the Republican Party claims it believes when it comes to so many different policies out there, yet they don't. And it just seems kind of mean to not do it. It's just like, you have the opportunity. Why don't you do it? Now, back to the original point. The lieutenant governor has issued a statement regarding the need to do some redistricting. And there are other Republicans that also believe, largely because of the missed opportunity when the last redistricting was done. But maybe 50-50. I mean, it should be as easy as can possibly be. But not with the Republican Party that runs Missouri. We'll see. Maybe it'll happen easily. Maybe it'll happen quickly. But I will not be surprised at all if they are not able to get it done. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson House Theory Realty. I follow her on social media. Part of the reason, well, she and I are friends, but as opposed to a lot of people who are in the world of real estate, she has so much more than just listing after listing after listing, though she does have some listings up there. But one of the things that she had posted last month that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to share it with you, she said, "This always shocks people. When selling a home in Missouri, sellers are not required to disclose murders, suicides, or hauntings. You'd be surprised how many people are worried about ghosts. But you do have to disclose 4 federally required items, including if your home has been or was built before 1978, if there are any radioactive materials you're aware of, if your home was built over a landfill, and if the home has been a meth site in the past. If you're not sure about any of these, it's definitely a good topic to bring up with your realtor. When in doubt, disclose, disclose, disclose." There are a tremendous number of realtors out there that got a license because it was maybe an extra way to make a little money, a little walking around money, maybe pay for a vacation, and that's fine. But when you do it all the time, when it is your life outside of, your family, but it's your passion and your career, you're going to get so much more out of that realtor. And that's what you get with Emily Johnson House Theory Realty. Someone had texted, "Be careful what you wish for. We fled from Las Vegas 5 years ago because Californians invaded and ruined it." We're talking about people that flee one state, go to another, political refugees. There's been a shift in recognition of people fleeing blue states to red states. And what has been observed is that a disproportionately high number of people that are conservative or Republicans are the ones that go to the red states, while people that are of the left tend to not, because that was the fear. You think, oh, well, people move from California, they're lefties, they come here and they're going to vote lefty. And that was a perfectly logical fear, but it appears as if that isn't something that we need to worry about quite as much as we did once upon a time, because not that many lefties actually, not nearly as many as people on the right, leave a left state to go to a red state. And part of the reason is because of the stereotypes that are created. Left-wingers get told that, in Florida, they're all a bunch of homophobes that hate poor people and they're all racist. And so that fake narrative keeps them away. So, hey, I guess that's the upside of being called a racist and a Nazi. Glenn Beck's coming up next. Talk with you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.